Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 173. Today is Sunday, January the 26th. We had a bonus episode for you folks this past week. For those of you who missed it, on Friday night, I had the Southpaw Outlaw, Serena De Jesus, on the show. She had to get some anger off her chest, and I gave her the platform to do so. So that would be episode 172 and a half. Go back and check that one out in case you missed it. We had some MMA action over the weekend, UFC and Bellator. Before I get into all that, let me introduce my co-host, all the way from New Jersey and well-rested, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, are you feeling refreshed on this Sunday evening, my friend?
I am, Bill, mostly because it's been unseasonably warm up here in New Jersey for this January. Bill, your boy needs some snow, man. I'd like to not have to go to work, maybe give me just one day, just one snow day, just to kind of catch up with everything. We just finished midterms. That's all I ask. Just one snow day.
Granted. I mean, I guess, working 180 days a year is a little cumbersome.
Bill, it's different, man. As a full-time dad, you should understand me, Bill, because I basically got to raise these kids since their parents won't do it.
Yeah, but I don't get any snow days, Jeff. I got to be I'm a dad all the time, which, by the way, the team got hit with the flu here in the Welker household. First the baby, then the wife. I'm convinced it didn't hit me because I basically embalmed myself with bourbon, which I think preserves my body. it may age me and give me a few extra wrinkles, but I'm convinced that's what kept the flu away, which is why I'm continuing to liquor myself up here as we talk. I'll get into what I'm sipping on a little bit later. Let's talk about some mixed martial arts, because that's why the people are here, Jeff. UFC Fight Night 166, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a big fan of the state of North Carolina. Fun place, a lot of great breweries. I've been there a couple of times. I plan to go back. Heavyweights in action in the main event here, Jeff. Let's start at the top. Curtis Blaydes, man, I cannot explain the phenomenon that is Curtis Blaydes, because whatever it is about him, he just doesn't click with this MMA community. He's been kind of labeled as like a lay and pray fighter because of his wrestling abilities, and I can't really understand where it comes from. The guy has 13 wins in mixed martial arts. 10 of them are by knockout or TKO, and against top competition. And if you look at the only people he hasn't been able to knock out, it's Mark Hunt, which, all right, Mark Hunt, Justin Willis, and Daniel Omalanchik. All three guys are really tough to finish. So I don't know where this kind of stigma has been attached to Curtis Blaydes from. And he's in a really precarious situation, because does he deserve the title shot? Probably. Will he get it? Probably not. You know why? Because Francis Ngannou is fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik coming up very shortly. And a lot of people are already talking about the winner of that fight getting the title shot. And Curtis Blaydes has 2 losses, and both of those losses are to Francis Ngannou. Granted, they were both very controversial, but they're losses on paper nonetheless. So I don't know, man. He's kind of in an odd spot, because the guy's a fucking monster. I mean, there's no denying it. Look what he did to Junior Dos Santos last night. But for whatever reason, he just can't get that fire lit under him. Maybe it's because he's so soft spoken. He doesn't do enough to kind of get himself out there. I don't know the explanation, but talk to me about the fight, Jeff. What did you think about his performance against Junior Dos Santos in there last night?
Bill, I think his talking was done in the cage, man. He looked phenomenal. Not to take anything away from Junior Dos Santos, he always brings it. But Curtis Blaydes, man, he was just ready for him. Everything that Junior Dos Santos was doing was the right thing, but Curtis Blaydes using that wrestling, man, to his advantage, and it kept Junior Dos Santos honest. Junior Dos Santos was expending a lot of energy blocking those takedowns. And there was one instance in the first round where Junior Dos Santos stuffed a takedown, but Curtis Blaydes got behind him for a sec, and Junior Dos Santos ran forward and did a spinning back fist just to avoid Curtis Blaydes being too close to him. So I think Curtis Blaydes is doing the right thing. He's mixing everything together really well. The final sequence of this fight was absolutely vicious because, and I always talk about patterns, and Curtis Blaydes built that pattern into Junior Dos Santos' brain. Curtis Blaydes dropped his level, and Junior Dos Santos dropped his hands for a sec, and as soon as Curtis Blaydes came up, he came up so fast, Bill. He landed that overhand right that just stunned Dos Santos. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what happened exactly, but Dos Santos covered up, and then he was kind of bent forward, which, we never see that from Dos Santos. He's usually, his guard's up here, and Dos Santos just, he crumbled under Blaydes' pressure. So, Curtis Blaydes is the combination of pressure, wrestling, vicious ground and pound, which for some reason nobody talks about. This guy, if he gets on top of you, you're not getting up, man. And just unadulterated power. And I think that part of the reason nobody really has him in the heavyweight title conversation is, like you said, he's very soft-spoken. He's not going to call anybody out in particular. You're not going to see him go into a rant. He's a really mellow guy, Bill, but Lord knows nobody wants to be in that cage with him either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's part of the problem. If he's not opening his mouth and calling out the shots that he wants, nobody's going to really step up and say, like, you know what I really want to do today? I really want to get in a cage fight with Curtis Blaydes, who's knocked out 10 of his 15 opponents. But yeah, I love your description of what he did to Junior Dos Santos. So Dos Santos did everything that he could. He kept a low squatting stance, and he kept his hands low, which is what you have to do to defend the takedowns, which he did. He didn't get taken down at all in that fight. And then, but the price you pay for that is your face is exposed. So maybe you can deal with the wrestling of Curtis Blaydes, but if you're giving up some of your defenses to defend that wrestling, you got to pay the price for that sometimes. But yeah, just beautiful technique. He was timing that counter uppercut from Junior Dos Santos. He was throwing that rear uppercut every time Curtis changed levels, and Curtis picked up on it, and he baited him with that takedown, with that level change, and he knew that uppercut was coming, and he was able to move his head just off the center line enough when he threw that overhand right to get away from that uppercut and land the perfect punch. It was really a work of art. I rewatched that sequence over and over, and it was just that's what it was. It was a work of art. He made Dos Santos bite on that level change so hard. He timed that counter uppercut, and he threw the overhand right around it. It was really awesome and a spectacular performance by Curtis Blaydes. Will it give him the opportunity to get in there with Stipe? I don't think so. Stipe's been talking about so many other things. The rematch with DC is always a possibility if the company throws enough money at him. Stipe will get in there with DC. We kind of got to see that rubber match. I mean, they both knocked each other out one time. That's the most logical next step in the heavyweight division, in my opinion. And then you have Ngannou and Rosenstrike. I think if Rosenstrike beats Ngannou, you're going to be likely to see him get a title shot, just because the guy's been on such a tear lately, especially if he's able to knock out Ngannou impressively. If Ngannou wins, I don't think a lot of people will be in a hurry to see a rematch with him and Stipe. But Curtis Blaydes in a weird spot, man. It's not like he can even call out Ngannou again to kind of like wipe this blemish off his record. And the 2 fights with Ngannou were really unfortunate because the first one was stopped by a cut, and the second one was a really controversial TKO 45 seconds or so into the fight. I'd have to look up exactly what it was, but I know it was under a minute. And we know that's not a Curtis Blaydes performance, but nonetheless, if you look up his record, it shows that he was TKO'd by Ngannou really quickly twice. So it kind of puts him in a bad spot. But he got himself a nice little highlight reel last night. So I was really happy for him. I've been a fan of Curtis Blaydes for a long time. I don't know how he'll do against Stipe in there because Stipe is a different level. Curtis Blaydes has great hands. Stipe has greater hands. Curtis Blaydes has awesome wrestling. Stipe has better wrestling. Curtis's wrestling credentials are phenomenal, especially at heavyweight, because you don't see a lot of heavyweights who can wrestle. So that junior college wrestling puts him 10 levels ahead of 9 out of 10 heavyweights. But Stipe was a Division I wrestler. And it's just a different ball game. They're 2 different sports almost. But the thing I will say about Curtis is he's learned to adapt that wrestling really well to MMA, and he's proven it in his performances. So I do hope he gets that title shot, but I don't see it happening. I think his best bet may be to immediately call out Rosenstrike if Rosenstrike wins against Ngannou. Let Stipe do whatever he's going to do, rematch DC or whatever the case, and then try and get the title shot this way. That would be my advice there. Co-main event, kind of surprising performance from Michael Chiesa. Looked really good in there against Raphael Dos Anjos. And he looked huge, man. I was looking at Chiesa and one of the post-fight interview things where he comes up to the desk and Anthony Smith and Rashad Evans were there. And Chiesa was bigger than Rashad Evans. I mean, I know Rashad's not a huge guy, but he fought at heavyweight, don't forget. And Michael Chiesa fought at lightweight. And Chiesa's there, and he looks like, broader shoulders, and he's taller. He looks like he's looking super muscular now. Just a great performance. I mean, his wrestling entries looked really good against RDA. His top control, as we've known about him, phenomenal. The fact that he was able to control a black belt like RDA, and RDA, to his credit, like he's an old school Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he's a top pressure guy. If he gets, he's not gonna submit you off his back or anything like that. He's a nasty black belt when he's on top of you and able to put pressure on you, but not so much the other way around. I thought it was a good performance by Chiesa. I thought his wrestling looked good, and yeah, I mean, he got caught with a couple of big shots, but he shows that he could take a punch at this weight class, and I think he's found a new home. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
But I think you're underplaying Chiesa's performance here. You did a good job of describing it, but Bill, that was a master class, man. Chiesa went in there and just controlled every aspect of this fight, dude. When Chiesa wanted, the fight was on the ground. I think he realized how good RDA is on the feet. He's got RDA has a very, very strong Muay Thai background, especially when you let him get going, when he gets in your face. Dude, and I think that Chiesa just did such a good job of stifling that with his takedowns. And when they were on the floor, man, it was all Michael Chiesa. RDA did a good job of getting back up in the first round, even early second round. But after that, he was just so exhausted from carrying Michael Chiesa around on his back. And, dude, Chiesa threatened with 1 or 2 submissions, but I think to me that control that he had on the ground is just as scary, man. To make somebody feel like no matter what they do, they're not getting out of this, to make them feel like they're drowning almost, trying to go against the current, huge, huge feather in Chiesa's cap. I think that 170 is a good weight class for him. And like you said, the man is enormous, dude. He was like a whole foot taller than Michael Chiesa at the weigh-ins. And Bill, Raphael Dos Anjos. Mm-hmm. Bill, I could see Michael Chiesa even fighting at 185, man. The guy's enormous, walks around like 200 pounds. I don't know how he made 155 at one point in his life, dude.
Yeah. Well, he would barely make it. Is what he did. I mean, remember when he fought like Kevin Lee? He really sucked himself out to cut that far down. And I think he's adopted a new strength and conditioning program, a new coach maybe that's helped him put on some muscle. But yeah, he's just got a huge frame. I mean, he's really tall. Let's talk about the call out. I liked it, man. I thought it was direct to the point. It was memorable. He said, DC, I want to keep this short. I want to call my next opponent, Colby Covington. I'll see you in July. And he walks off. I thought it was a perfect call out. I like the fight. I think it's a great matchup. And he was asked about it in the post-fight interview at the desk I was telling you about. And he said the reasoning was he just wants a challenge. He thinks that Colby is one of the best welterweights out there. He's not looking for like a lot of smack talk. He's going to leave all that up to him in the buildup, but he thinks it's just a good challenge for his career going forward. And he wants to test himself against the best. I think it's an awesome fight. I mean, because Colby can take down any welterweight on the planet. We've seen it. But do you want to take Michael Chiesa to the ground? And do you want to stand with him when he's so rangy and everything like that? But then again, we've seen Colby take guys like Damian Maia to the ground, no problem. So I think it's a fun matchup. Give me your thoughts, Jeff, on the call out and the actual matchup itself.
Bill, I liked it. I liked the call out. It was to the point. He wasn't, making a big scene out of this. I liked it. I think that it's a very interesting matchup stylistically. And I think that Michael Chiesa is someone who maybe doesn't draw the most attention, but I think a fight like this kind of puts him on the map in the welterweight division. So I think it's a really smart move by Michael Chiesa, not only for his career, but also, like you said, to challenge himself. I respect that a lot. So let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how quick Colby Covington will be to jump at this opportunity. I mean, he is the number 2 ranked contender or the number 1 contender still probably. He may want to crack at the winner of the Tyron Woodley Leon Edwards fight. I think there's still a lot of heat between Woodley and Covington, and they have a score to settle there. But that would be my first choice, is Woodley and Covington. But if that doesn't come through, I'm all for Chiesa and Covington. I think it's a fun fight. All right, Jeff, before we go through the rest of this card here, I've been sipping on some scotch. I've been talking all about bourbons for the longest time. I was on a big bourbon kick, and I got in the mood for some scotch the other day, and this is what I was sipping on during the fights last night. This is the Glenrothes. It's a Speyside scotch. It's aged 12 years in sherry oak casks. So casks made out of oak wood that had sherry wine in them, which is a sweeter wine. This is a little bit sweeter of a scotch than I was expecting. Usually you think scotch, you think smoky, but this one's actually pretty sweet, and it's not just because of the sherry. It's because of the way it's made, and it's not made with dried peat, which gives it that smokiness, because they burn the peat. And the peat has a smoky flavor that gets into the whiskey sometimes, which a lot of Scotch snobs will tell you they hate that peaty flavor. They'll tell you it tastes like boiled Band-Aids, and they're wrong. But so something like a lager,
Say it again so they can hear it, Bill.
They're wrong. They're wrong, Jeff.
There you go.
Was that loud enough? Think they heard that?
Yeah.
You guys are wrong. I'm going to be like Stephen A. Smith. You dead wrong on this one, Joe Rogan. Dead wrong. All right. So a little sweeter than I expected, but not too sweet. So on the nose, it's got some white chocolate a little bit. And then on the palate, it's got like some green apple, a little melon, and even a little cinnamon on the back end, a little bit of spiciness on the finish. Really smooth. You don't need to cut it with any water or anything like that. Really solid, like dessert type scotch. I'm enjoying it. I was enjoying it last night while I was watching Curtis Blaydes beat some ass. In any case, let's move on here. A little revival for the flyweights last night. Alex Perez with a nasty arm triangle on Jordan Espinoza. It wasn't even a full arm triangle because he got it from top half guard, and he kind of just crushed the throat of Espinoza with shoulder pressure. And Espinoza was kind of doing the right thing in that he wasn't letting Perez pass his guard to get across for the arm triangle, but he also wasn't defending the arm triangle at all. He wasn't doing any of the right defenses to get out of this. And yeah, you wouldn't expect somebody to be able to finish it from half guard, but some guys just have that squeeze, man. And Alex Perez has that squeeze, and he used it. So Espinoza, I don't know what he was doing. I mean, he was doing a good job retaining his half guard, but wasn't attempting to escape, wasn't trying to shrimp out or press his hand to his face or do any of the defenses at all, or even straighten his arm back out. He just kind of let Perez have this one, and Perez took it, finished it, and I think he got a bonus for it. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Bill actually had an opinion as to why Jordan Espinoza wasn't defending the arm triangle here. With the arm triangle, and Bill, this is one of my favorite submissions. You're essentially driving the opponent's shoulder into their own neck to choke them out here, into their own carotid artery. But the way that it was set up here by Alex Perez, the pressure was coming from the other side, the side that Perez's own shoulder was on. And I think that the reason that Espinoza wasn't defending was, one, he had the half guard, so he probably, and that's a good way to get out of it if you're moving, and that's the problem. Espinoza wasn't moving, but it wasn't on his Perez's body was not on the right side to finish the arm triangle here. Usually you want your body on the side that's pushing the opponent's own shoulder into their carotid artery.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Espinoza, in his mind, he thought he was safe, but at the same time, the arm triangle is a slower choke. It's a blood choke, so you're not going to feel it right away. And dude, credit to Perez. His shoulder pressure is nasty, dude. His shoulder pressure is what got the choke here. So huge performance for Alex Perez. I loved it. And I think you're right, Bill. I think the flyweights needed something like this. They needed a really nice finish. And even leading up to that, the fight was great, man. I've always been a very big proponent of the flyweight division here. And it's because of fights like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's fights like that made me fall in love with that division. So, I hopefully we hear a little bit more about the title picture here, because obviously the UFC, I think they wanted to be rid of the flyweight division by now, but I think it's fights like these that are keeping that division afloat right now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I can't see Henry Cejudo making that weight cut again if he doesn't have to. He's just kind of holding on to his two belts for as long as possible until the UFC finally strips him of one. And I think it's going to be that flyweight title, and it's going to be hard for them to hang on as a weight class without Cejudo, because as cringeworthy as he is, he did revive that division by beating Mighty Mouse, because it was a dead division, because nobody could even come close to beating Mighty Mouse. And it kind of like, it was kind of like, why do you even want to watch something if you already know what's going to happen? And Henry Cejudo was the one that was able to mix that bag up a little bit. I think if it would have been even better if Mighty Mouse stuck around and they had a rubber match there. I think it would have been a better case there, because now you have, your top contenders. Joseph Benavidez has already fought Cejudo.
Like twice, I think, right?
No, just once. But he beat him, I believe, in a really close fight. But
yeah,
that's just like, and I think the only person to beat Alex Perez is Joseph Benavidez. So, maybe that's the fight to make, Perez and Benavidez, and do it for the vacant flyweight title. That's what I would do. Because my money would be on Cejudo never returning to that flyweight division.
Yeah.
All right. Angela Hill beat the shit out of the local girl, Hannah Cyphers. Just some nasty ground and pound. This is the most vicious we've ever seen Angela Hill look. And the reason I'm a fan of Angela Hill is because she fights like every other month. And if she doesn't, she's like, hey, I need a fight. And that's all she'll talk about. Like, I need a fight. Like, let's fight. And even after this one, she's like, I want to fight. I want to be on this Scotland card. And it's coming up in a couple of months, whatever it is, because my husband's Scottish. I want to fight there, but it's a little too far away. So I need another fight while I'm waiting for that fight. It's like, it reminds me of the movie Christmas Vacation, where Bill Murray's brother, Brian Doyle Murray, plays Chevy Chase's boss, and Chevy Chase comes in the room, and Brian Doyle Murray doesn't want to talk to him. He just picks up the phone. He's like, get me somebody. I don't care, anybody, and get me somebody while I'm waiting. It reminds me of that. But yeah, nasty elbows from Angela Hill. It just mounted Cyphers, and just, you know, the referee had to come in and save her. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude. Angela Hill looked great in there. Like you said, ground and pound was vicious, you know, dropping some mean elbows from the top. And Bill, I liked that version of Angela Hill. You know, sometimes she seems a little patient, and she even talked about in the post-fight interview that she didn't want to leave it in the hands of the judges because it doesn't always go her way. And, you know, I feel like there have been one or two fights that really should have gone her way. So good for Angela Hill, man. I like that killer instinct. I want to see more of that.
Yeah, man. I agree. And you'll probably see more of it soon because she wants to fight in Scotland and then have another fight while she's waiting for her fight in Scotland. So good things for Angela Hill, hopefully. Good night for the Hills. Jamal Hill getting a dominant win over Darko Stojcic, and looked good doing it. And Bevon Lewis getting a win over Daquan Townsend. Bevon looked really good, even though he blew out his knee or something like early in the fight. Hopefully we don't hear his dad coming out and complaining about how his knee was hurt like we did with Macy Barber last week. And then I'll give you one more, Jeff, just for the sake of time. I'll give you these three here and then tell me the one you want to comment on. Arnold Allen beating up on the last minute replacement opponent and Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz stepping up on like a week's notice to get in there with Arnold Allen, who really kind of put it on him. And Nick Lentz was looking a lot worse for wear when this thing was over. But between those three, so Hill over Stojcic, Bevon Lewis over Townsend, and Arnold Allen over Nick Lentz, all unanimous decision victories. Which one impressed you the most, or if any of them?
Excuse me. I'll be honest with you, Bill. For me, the most impressive here was Arnold Allen. Nick Lentz is a very tough guy, scary dude. When he's prepared and everything, and you know, the fact that Arnold Allen took him on a week's notice. You know, both of these guys had different opponents, I believe, on this same card. So you know, the last minute changeup always really scary. And I think Arnold Allen handled it like a pro, man. He went in there, looked really good against Nick Lentz, who again is a tough guy in this featherweight division. And I think that Arnold Allen is definitely someone to keep your eye on. He flies under the radar, Bill, but he is very well rounded. You know, stand up is really good. Mm-hmm. Definitely one of his more standout skills here in MMA. But dude, yeah, man, Arnold Allen. It's a name you're gonna hear come up a lot in the future, I think. So definitely someone to keep on the radar.
For sure, man. And then we had Justine Kish getting a unanimous decision victory over Lucy Pudilova. A lot of people with varying opinions on how they saw this one going. And Pudilova has lost a couple of decisions now because she likes to stay on the outside and point fight. And when she gets pressured, the judges see that pressure as her getting beat. Even though she may be outlanding her opponents, she's not doing a lot of damage and she's not moving forward. And it's kind of been to her demise, especially in her last couple of fights. And also Justine Kish apparently shit her pants during this fight. So give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh man, I actually didn't watch this one. I didn't jump on the card until the Arnold Allen versus Nick Lentz fight. But Bill, didn't that happen last time when she fought against Felice Herrig or something?
Um, I'm not sure.
Somebody
And
shit their pants one time in the cage against Felice Herrig.
yeah,
I'm like 90% sure it was Justine Kish.
man, you know what? Maybe it was, and maybe that's what I saw people talking about. So I don't know if she had done it again. We may be reporting false news here, Jeff, but a lot of people were talking about talking about it as if it had happened again last night, and it was Justine Kish against Felice Herrig. So you're correct about that. That was July 14th, 2017. That's a moment that will go down in shit history. And since that time, it has been put into the unified rules that if you shit your pants, you lose.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, somebody beats the shit out of you, you lose. So there's that. I'm going to have to fact check this now because I saw people talking on Twitter. Maybe they were just roasting her for, this event that happened 3 years ago. Or maybe she shit herself again. In any case, she won the fight. So there's that. Montel Jackson and Felipe Diaz-Colares. In my opinion, this was the fight of the night, Jeff. I don't know if you caught this one. It was on the prelims. These guys were going back and forth. They were fighting at an insane pace. And in the third round, Jackson lit Colares up with one of the most vicious combinations I've seen in a long time. And Colares hung in there. He took some huge shots from Montel Jackson, whose combinations looked really crisp, really hard punches. He was mixing things together really well. This fight had grappling exchanges. It had boxing exchanges, back and forth action, like everything you could want out of a fight. These guys didn't get a bonus. But in my opinion, it was the fight of the night. Did you catch this one, Jeff?
I did not, but I'm going to have to go back and watch it. And Bill, there's a couple of fights I want to go back and watch. My man Brett Johns getting it done against Tony Gravely, and the brother of everybody's favorite judo artist, Gilbert Burns, his brother Herbert Burns, having a successful UFC debut last night, Bill. I got some homework to do, man.
Yeah. I mean, they have to be by far the toughest brothers named Gilbert and Herbert. Because if you're like, hey, my name's Gilbert, me and my brother Herbert, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, you would laugh. Like you're laughing now.
Just did, yeah.
But if it happened to be Gilbert and Herbert Burns saying this, then they'd be right. They're going to beat the shit out of you, whoever you are. These two are bad motherfuckers with very unassuming names.
Yeah.
You would never expect like a bad motherfucker to be named Gilbert or Herbert. But yet here we are talking about them because they're bad motherfuckers. Herbert Burns with a knee knockout in the first round. It was a nasty one too. And your boy Brett Johns, the pikey, submission victory in the third round. But this was a very grappling heavy match. And this one actually did win fight of the night. There's a lot of back and forth grappling exchanges. And then the only one we skipped over here, Sarah McMahon with a dominant victory over Lena Landsberg, using that Olympic caliber wrestling to just put Lena Landsberg on her back over and over and over again and just smothered her. Just smothered her, Jeff. Like I could barely breathe watching this fight. That's how suffocating Sarah McMahon was. Getting back to the Sarah McMahon of old, her wrestling is just so powerful. If she gets her hands around you, like you're getting dragged down to the pits of hell.
Yeah, but I think Sarah McMahon, I love her. She's one of my favorite fighters, but I think her career really suffered from that loss to Ronda Rousey. And ever since that loss, people kind of forget that, Ronda was in the Olympics, but so was Sarah McMahon. Sarah McMahon won an Olympic medal before Ronda did.
Mhm.
And people forget that, man. Sarah McMahon's dangerous. You do not want to be in the cage with her. Ever.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's shown a little susceptibility to jiu-jitsu. Her last 2 fights before this one, she was submitted by Marion Renault and Ketlin Vieira, respectively. But she was back with a vengeance in this one. And if you look at her record, prior to that, her losses were to Amanda Nunes, Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, all champions.
Yeah.
And that was it. So, yeah, I mean, if she cleans up the jiu-jitsu a little bit, I mean, I would love to see down the line maybe Sarah McMahon getting back in there with Amanda Nunes, but she is 39 years old.
I forgot that part.
Yeah, there's that. But still a monster in there. I wouldn't want to wrestle her. In any case, we got some time off from the UFC, at least for a week now, before we have the next pay-per-view, UFC 247, which will be on February 8th. That's John Jones versus Dominic Reyes. So we have another week to talk that one over. But before we kind of take a high-level look at that one, I want to talk about Bellator really quickly. I only saw highlights of the Bellator card, but I want to talk about Cyborg winning the featherweight championship over Julia Budd. And this is a big deal because now Cyborg has been a champion in Strikeforce, Invicta, the UFC, and Bellator. She's got the Grand Slam. I think she may be the only person, male or female, that has titles in 4 different organizations that includes the UFC. So there are people like, I think Ben Askren maybe has championships in 4 different ones. He had like ONE FC, Bellator. I don't know if he had.
I think he had a Strikeforce belt too, right?
Strikeforce, and then
World Series of Fighting.
Yes, World Series of Fighting. But so I think she may be the only one, male or female, that has 4 championships in 4 different organizations that includes the UFC. That's a big deal. So a lot of people making the argument like, oh, she's the greatest female combat athlete of all time. But hold on a second. Amanda Nunes knocked her out in like a minute something. Both great arguments, I think. Because Cyborg, you can't deny her accomplishments. I mean, people have been trying to do it her whole career, but she just keeps getting in there and wins. And she keeps her head to the grindstone and does what she has to do to keep winning. But then Amanda Nunes, you can't deny her accomplishments either. I mean, 2 division champion in the UFC. She doesn't have all the other organization belts, but that's because she hasn't fought there. If she goes over to Bellator, she'll win the belt, no problem. I mean, she could end her UFC contract, go challenge the Bellator champion, go challenge the one champion, whoever their bantamweight or featherweight champion is, and she can go collect a bunch of belts. So it's kind of like at a certain point you're comparing apples to oranges, but we can say for a fact she's one of the greatest female combat athletes of all time. And she looked patient in the fight from the parts I saw of it, in there with a very experienced Julia Budd, who's only 13-3 in MMA, but she's got a lot of experience in Muay Thai. She has a victory over Gina Carano in Muay Thai. Cyborg has a victory over Gina Carano in MMA. So there's that. Yeah, man, I thought it was impressive. She looked patient in there. The knockout came in the 4th round, and when it came, she hit Julia Budd with a vicious flurry. It was really, really nice. Mixed up the combination really well. It kind of similar to the combination Curtis Blaydes was throwing on Junior Dos Santos up against the cage. But yeah, she looked good. And then Darrion Caldwell looked really good. With a nasty rear naked choke that was kind of like off to the side, and he was like pulling the leg to the side of the opponent. Very very unusual finish to the rear naked choke. And then apparently Sergio Pettis is in Bellator now. I mean,
What? When did
yeah,
that happen?
I have no idea, but he finished with a first round guillotine over Alfred Khashakyan. So there's that. And then Raymond Daniels, the world famous kickboxer, with a first round TKO victory over Jason King, whoever that is. If you haven't seen the highlight of Raymond Daniels' first knockout win in Bellator, you need to Google that. The guy is a fucking phenomenal kickboxer. And then there's a bunch of other irrelevant things on here. Aaron Pico with a knockout victory over some guy. I didn't even tune in for this. Oh, apparently Curtis Millender is in is in Bellator too, and he won last night. Yeah, I guess like all these people that got cut from the UFC got quietly picked up by Bellator so quietly that, as involved in MMA as I am, I haven't heard about any of this. Oh, and apparently AJ Agazarm won a fight. So, okay. I'm finding all this out now, Jeff, because I'm just reading the card. But give me your reactions to some or all of this, or none of this. You know, whatever you want.
Bill, after hearing Cyborg win the belt, everything was just a shock to me, man. AJ Algazarm, I thought he was still competing in like EBIs. I didn't know he finally jumped into MMA. I knew he'd wanted to, but I thought after getting slapped up by our boy Jake Shields, I thought he'd be put off by it. But anyway,
no, he had a fight in Bellator a while ago, and it was terrible. It was really terrible. Apparently he's 3-1 in MMA.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they're all in Bellator. So I haven't heard of anybody he's fought, but all right. So I guess he's an MMA fighter now.
Yeah, I'm also surprised to hear about Curtis Millender and Sergio Pettis here. But I think for Pettis, it's a good move to go to Bellator because of the conversation we had about the flyweights and not knowing where they stand. I know that Pettis, that's been one of his main divisions. Now he's more at bantamweight, but even the bantamweight division in the UFC, it's kind of clogged up at the top, mostly because the division keeps going while Henry Cejudo is kind of on the sidelines here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, Bill. I knew that Cyborg had a fight coming up. I thought it was like next month, though.
Yeah. I saw the picture of her holding up the 4 belts, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's something worth talking about. So I looked up the highlights of the fight, but I was happy the UFC was over by like 10:30 p.m.
Oh yeah, dude.
That was like the best gift I could have received. I like these ESPN cards that are over early. I know we have a bunch of listeners over in the UK and stuff and Ireland too, and they're all just like, fuck you guys. You have no idea what it's like. But and Australia too. We get a lot of listeners in Australia, Jeff. They're probably like, fuck you guys. We gotta be up in the middle of the night watching these things. We gotta get up at 5 a.m. every weekend. All right, and I feel bad for you guys. If I can send you all a sympathy card, I would. But
I don't. They can move over here. It's fine.
That's true. They can. There's a reason that it's prime time in our time zone, Jeff. It's because we're the center of the universe.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah. The sooner people come to terms with that, then the better off they'll be. But I've actually considered moving to the West Coast just so UFC will be on earlier in the day.
That's fine, dude. I don't even blame you for that.
Like, could you imagine last night? Like, the fights would be over at 7 p.m. Like, the fights are done. We could record an episode and then
still go out for a beer afterwards.
Yeah, go out to dinner. Like, still have like an hour of daylight after the fights are over. It'd be awesome. All right, that's it. I'm moving to Vegas. Yeah, man. So Bellator. All right, cool. That was a pretty cool card. I might go back and check out a couple of these fights. I want to see the Raymond Daniels fight. For those of you who don't know who Raymond Daniels is, world class kickboxer, and they're doing it the right way. They're kind of like easing him into MMA, giving him people that are going to stand up with him. Very unlike what the UFC did with Gokhan Saki, where they just kind of threw him to the wolves right away. Gokhan Saki, another world-class kickboxer, K1 champion, all that stuff. But yeah, Bellator is doing it the right way with Raymond Daniels. I think they could really build him up to be something special in MMA as well. So we got John Jones and Dominic Reyes. Hard for me to get excited about that main event, Jeff. I got to be honest, but I'm going to do my best
next week, man. It's all good.
Yeah, we'll put it off to next week. I'm going to do my best for you guys. I hate to be negative. I hate to point out problems without solutions. It's just not my style. So I'm going to find a way to get excited about this main event. And then other than that, we got a great card. Valentina Shevchenko putting her flyweight title on the line against Caitlin Chookagian. That's a fun one. It's not as much of a discrepancy as Jones and Reyes, but not a lot of people giving Chookagian a chance in this one. Just because Shevchenko is just a fucking phenom. She's up there, man. There are some days where I would put her as the number one female fighter of all time. I know she's got the 2 losses to Nunes, but like that first one, she turned up the speed in that 3rd round, and then it was only a 3-round fight, and the second fight I thought she could have won. I thought it was super close. So
yes,
if anything,
those last 2 rounds.
Yeah, if anything, she made it competitive with someone who moved up a weight class after that fight, and she moved down a weight class after that fight. So, you could make the argument for Shevchenko being the best female combat athlete of all time. I think the 3 in the conversation have to be her, Nunes, and Cyborg. But Chookagian, don't sleep on her either. She's tough. And then Alir Latifi's making his heavyweight debut, Jeff, which is interesting because I always thought Latifi could probably go down to middleweight. He's kind of small for light heavyweight.
Yeah.
And, he was losing a bunch of fights, and he's like, I know what I need to do. I gotta get bigger.
He's gonna be like a foot shorter than maybe everybody except DC in that division.
Yeah. Him and DC would be an interesting matchup that we'll never see. But he's fighting Derek Lewis. So,
oh, good Lord, nah. Don't do it, man.
Yeah, it's not
Don't do this to me, Bill.
Not a good look for Latifi. I'm a big fan of Alir Latifi too. I'm a big fan. A big fan of Derek Lewis. But yeah, when I saw this, I'm like, oof. Yeah, we got some good stuff on this card, but I don't want to get too deep into it because we got next week. We got to have something to talk about next week, right? So non-MMA stuff. I watched Dracula on Netflix. They call it a series, but it's 3 episodes, and each episode is an hour and a half. So it's really just like a 4.5-hour movie. But I liked it. I thought it was good. It's hard for me to get into these shows and stuff because I don't have a whole lot of time to be watching TV and things, but Dracula on Netflix was pretty good. I thought they told the story really well. They included a lot of aspects from the Bram Stoker novel, a lot of characters. They put a little bit of a modern twist on it. The only thing I thought was kind of weird, and I don't know if this will be a spoiler or not for those of you who haven't heard it. So if you're planning on watching it and you don't want any spoilers, skip ahead on the episode or tune out or something. But so Dracula is from Romania, and I always liked the the Dracula accent, that Transylvania accent, like, oh, I'm going to suck your blood, Jeff. But in the beginning of the show, he kind of like, when he drinks somebody's blood, he kind of like takes their abilities or their knowledge and stuff they know and their life force and stuff. So he drinks the blood of a British guy, and then he speaks with a British accent for the whole rest of the show. And I'm like, wait a second, like this one guy, and then like now Dracula's British. Like I didn't get that part of it. If you guys have some insight into this that I'm missing, like please explain it to me. Like why, maybe just the actor's British and he couldn't do a Romanian accent. I don't know what's going on here. I thought he did a great job. I thought he played a great Dracula. It was one of the most memorable Draculas I've seen in a long time. There's been a lot of cheesy vampire shit out there. Like the True Blood and Twilight and all that garbage. But this got back to like, the real like Count Dracula vampire stuff. And I was into it. Have you seen this, Jeff, or are you interested in it at all?
Yeah, no, dude. I remember reading Dracula in school, and I thought it was such a good book. It was so well done, and it always kept me guessing. So that's definitely something I want to check out. But Bill, since we're on the topic, I wanted to. Well, I actually checked out this movie, the Mr. Rogers movie starring Tom Hanks. Mr. Rogers. Bill, it was absolutely amazing. I didn't really want to watch it at first. My friend kind of dragged me to it, but it was really, really interesting, man. I thought Tom Hanks was amazing as Mr. Rogers, and the way the movie was shot and filmed, they did it like it was an episode of Mr. Rogers. I grew up watching him, and I thought it was going to be kind of a bio documentary type of thing, but it wasn't. It was actually about this journalist who's doing a piece on Mr. Rogers, and he's got a lot of issues himself. But Mr. Rogers is such a nice guy that he kind of drops everything to get to know this kid. And Mr. Rogers ends up helping him in a really big way. This journalist ends up becoming a better person through knowing Mr. Rogers. So it kind of takes a look at how some healthier ways to deal with things like anger and sadness. Mr. Rogers was by no means a saint. So, it takes a look at how he deals with it. The big thing is, the big message here is that, it's okay to get mad. It's okay to get angry. Everybody gets frustrated, but there are healthy ways to deal with it. You and I train jiu-jitsu. Well, you train jiu-jitsu. I'm on and off, but it's just about, putting your energy into the right things. And I think that's something you and I kind of try to live by.
Yeah. I'm a big advocate of that. I've had to deal with some anger and things in my life, and martial arts has definitely helped me kind of channel that a lot. Everybody needs to find their thing. You generate a lot of negative energy as a human being. It's just the nature of being human, but you have to be able to direct it into something positive, or else it's just going to kind of eat you from the inside out. And I think, a lot of people kind of struggle with that. A lot of people don't find their thing. Maybe jiu-jitsu is not the thing for them, and they don't know what it is. But I think that's a really important part of life, is you gotta figure out a way to take that negativity that can eat you from the inside out, and find a way to apply it to something positive. We could sit around and bitch and moan and complain about shit all day. I can sit here and complain to you on the show every week, Jeff, but we try and find positive things to talk about. We try to find the good in what's going on, no matter what it is. And I think people respond to that, Jeff. I think that's why we got people tuning in from the UK and Ireland and Australia, and Sweden was a surprising one that people tune in a lot from. a couple of others. I see Japan. I go in every now and then and I check. I'm not all that concerned with the numbers, as you know, Jeff. But I like to see every now and then where people are listening from. That always interests me. But yeah, so shout out to all the people in Australia and in Europe and all over the place. We love hearing from you guys and all the different opinions that come in. And a lot of people have been asking Jeff about the missing drunken episode. There's been a lot of requests for it, so I'm kind of on the fence about posting it. The episode I did with my brother Rob from Disney last week, I was on the fence about posting it, and then Serena reached out and asked to do an episode. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to put out 3 episodes this week.
Yeah.
So if I get a couple of more requests, the guys from the Sound of Violence podcast, they're like, if anybody can convince Bill to post this episode, we'll take a shot of something disgusting on the air. So,
they could do gin. Gin's disgusting.
Oh yeah. Right. Oh man, yeah, a shot of gin would be gross. There's people listening in Brooklyn right now that are like, what are you talking about? We love gin. It's so delicious. Haven't you ever had a Spanish style gin and tonic? whatever's popular over in Brooklyn right now, with all these people wearing overalls and shit, like, and bow ties, making gin and tonics. Whatever the fuck they're doing.
Oh man. But we're going off the rails here, man.
They're wearing those denim overalls with flannel shirts underneath, like. It's a craft cocktail bar.
Oh god.
Yeah, we really got off track, huh? From talking about MMA. We lost a bunch of people right now. Like everybody from Australia and Europe, and I'm like, well, why the fuck do we listen to these guys? In any case, before we lose more of you, we better just call it a night. If you guys want to get a hold of Jeff on social media, and please do, he's fun to interact with. That's why I keep him around, even though he keeps me waiting on Sunday nights sometimes while he's resting his brain, as he says it. But if you want to reach out to Jeff and interact with him, he'll respond to your messages, probably more than he responds to mine. And you can reach him at animal_Wilson on Twitter and Instagram. And you guys know how to get a hold of me, and I encourage you, please do. I always like hearing from everybody. Let me know what you're thinking and drinking out there. It's at MMA on the Rocks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can send me an email, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. You can visit the website, MMAonTheRocks.com. Lots of ways to get a hold of us, and we love hearing from you guys. But that's all we got for this week. So until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.